Hey, everybody. I'd like to welcome and introduce Dr. Karen Price from Boston University, who will be speaking about interactivity in digital content in 2015. Dr. Price?
Thank you. So pleased to be able to be here. You know, most interactivity in language learning software is language-centric. It's based on and driven by written language and spoken language. And the interfaces we commonly use, the WIMP interfaces, limit our interactivity to intentional responses through typing and clicking and dragging or speech. Of course, interactions can be triggered by body movements or hand gestures, as with Nintendo's Wii, but interactivity in language learning software doesn't usually allow learners to interact through gestures or body movement. So, in contrast to the usual sorts of interactions we have in language learning materials, with intentional responses and spoken and written interactions, let's view a video showing interactivity through jumping and throwing and clapping as well as speaking. These additional ways of interacting are important since research indicates that young children can use gestures to convey comprehension way before they can convey their comprehension through multiple choice answers or keyboard inputs.
With in real time while they watch. There's one scene in one episode where Grover wants help counting coconuts, which the kids at home do by tossing those coconuts into his box. All they do is use the Kinect and toss a coconut like that, and as soon as it's released from their hand, it appears on screen and lands in Grover's box. In another scene in a different episode, it's actual footage from the 42nd season of Sesame Street, and the characters are doing a whole skit about has anyone grown taller or not. Kids at home are told if they see a ruler hidden anywhere in the scene to point at the ruler and shout picture, and a little Muppet is going to appear in the corner and take their picture with the Kinect. After that scene, they get to look at all of those pictures in a digital scrapbook, and then it progresses just like a normal episode would.
Human interaction is made up of intentional and unintentional responses. Speech is situated in a complex and rapid interplay of hand and body gestures, posture, and facial expressions. In the real world, our speaking and listening interactions are informed by and regulated by gaze and gesture. And sometimes our listening and speaking interactions are influenced or even determined by gaze and gesture. We make inferences from body language. And my talk today illustrates how technology that detects gaze and facial expression, which is readily available, easily implementable, and not expensive, can transform our notions of interactivity, which is generally based on intentional responses and language-centric responses, to something else. For example, technologies which detect gaze and facial expression can yield data about a learner's attentional resources. Page views, the length of time a page is up on the screen, are sometimes equated with a learner's attentional resources and his use of online resources. But there may be a big difference between a page view and data obtained through eye tracking. Eye tracking may help us make inferences about a learner's attentional resources and can be a trigger for real-time adaptation of online interactions. Let's look at an inexpensive technology that's transforming the types of interactions possible. This technology detects gaze and eye movement. This one, called the iTribe Tracker, which is $99, is a small bar placed here at the bottom of the monitor, or on the side of a tablet, or even connected to a mobile phone. The user's eye movement is detected by infrared beacons embedded adjacent to the standard front-facing cameras, and enables the users to activate links in a browser, turn pages, for example, or the eye movements are detected and stored as data. Researchers might then use the eye tracking data to try to determine what a learner might have read on a page, or what a learner might have noticed on a web page. The detection of facial expression is another technology that can transform our digital interactions. This technology detects and categorizes facial expression. One company, Affectiva, has conducted research to associate affective states with particular facial expressions. The user turns on a webcam, and the emotion detection software runs in the background as the user watches videos or works online. Affectiva researchers have collected 11 billion data points from 2.8 million faces in 75 countries and continue to collect more, associating various facial expressions of users from different ethnic groups, cultural groups, with various affective states, such as confusion. They've analyzed that data looking at gender and ethnicity and user interest and previous experience with that topic. Emotion, what is the importance of emotion in second language acquisition? In second language research, much of the focus up to now has been, as Meryl Sloan has noted, cognition, the underlying processes and sequences in language development. However, there is compelling evidence that emotion has direct pedagogical implications for the language classroom, not merely incidental to learning, but a very powerful influence on the perception and processing of input, speed, and noticing, as well as learning outcomes and motivational processes. Compared to other fields such as math, the role of emotion in language learning is neither well-researched nor granular. The SLA literature has tended to focus on emotions that are characterized as either positive or negative. Perhaps I think this might be due to Krashen, as he first described the affective filter. You remember Krashen hypothesized that a learner's positive emotions would prompt more learning, that the learner could take in more input in a positive emotional context. Negative emotion, he hypothesized, would effectively disallow learning input. The notion that negative emotion in language learners deters or prevents language acquisition is still the prevailing belief. McIntyre and Gregerson, for example, note that negative emotion restricts potential language input. In contrast, several studies provide evidence that negative emotions such as confusion and frustration can be correlated with gains in learning. When learners have available pedagogical scaffolds and support, encouraging them to see cognitive dissonance appears to assist learners in noticing and possibly assist learners interlanguage. Short-term confusion, curiosity, and anticipation can release dopamine in the brain, providing a physiological reward for the learner. A study I enjoyed very much, entitled Better to be Frustrated Than Bored, documents the cognitive and physiological benefits of frustration. And anybody who's played video games can relate to this. Much of the SLA research focuses on the role of anxiety in language acquisition, but a wide range of emotions from frustration, boredom, despair, interest, and curiosity can affect learners' cognitive and motivational processes. Many teacher trainers advocate an unflaggingly, emotionally supportive response to language learners. However, not all interventions intended to mitigate a learner's negative emotions may be beneficial. Research on the teaching of math, for example, compared the outcomes obtained from one software system providing empathic and motivating responses to another software system providing no such emotionally supportive responses. In other words, the responses of the non-supportive program were formal in tone and attributed the source of any negative emotion to the learner rather than the material itself. The study revealed that only the low domain knowledge students benefited. The high domain knowledge learners never benefited from the supportive learning system. As McIntyre and Gregerson note, The absence of a negative emotion is not the sought-after goal in language learning. Further research in the field is needed, though, to give us a more complete understanding of the ways in which affect contributes or detracts from language learning. So we've discussed how gaze and facial expression are important in detecting emotion, and they also enable more appropriate listening behavior, which is what we're going to look at with technology that integrates gaze and facial expression. Because the act of listening is a two-way process, it's a social construct where content and turn-taking are informed and regulated by non-linguistic and paralinguistic features. We've mentioned using the detection of gaze to infer attention, but the detection of gaze and facial expression also enables more appropriate listening behavior. Tony Lynch characterizes listening as a collaborative and reciprocal two-way activity. He points to the cognitive role that listening and the role of listening in communication. He writes, it's increasingly difficult to justify academic listening assessment and research based on static one-way audio only. In other words, one-way verbal input without discourse signaling cues. While avatars blink or encourage joint attention by turning to gaze at a specific area of a computer screen, these responses fall short of mirroring the full breadth of behaviors expected of listeners during face-to-face interactions. In contrast to the expressionless avatars, these avatars' facial expression changes to reflect engagement and appropriate reactions to content. Notice the way the expression on this avatar changes from smiling here to a more serious and concerned expression. So avatars then, by combining these technologies, can display more appropriate listening behaviors. So this new generation of avatars, which detect the user's gaze and facial expression, are now capable of back-channeling and knowing when to take turns and providing more appropriate responses and listening behaviors. They are called now sensitive artificial listeners. So in contrast to the limited facial expression of your typical avatar, these sensitive artificial listeners make inferences about a learner's affect and attentional resources, and they initiate turns based on cues detected from a user's verbal and nonverbal behavior. The sensitive artificial listener then incorporates these inferences into a more natural and intuitive online interaction, responding through vocalizations, head movements, glances, facial expressions, or speech content. Well, let's watch a video of an interaction between a sensitive listener programmed to be depressed. He's the one on the right here, programmed to be depressed, and he's trying to influence his human interlocutor on the left there to feel depressed also, though conversational interactions and attempts at prosodic alignment with the human. I want you to notice how the sensitive artificial listener on the right is going to offer back-channel responses. In other words, short vocalizations such as "uh-huh," "really," along with head nods and appropriately timed smiles to signal that he, the avatar, is still present and attentive. These back-channel responses also provide cognitive information to the woman regarding her unfolding comprehension of what the avatar is saying and her reaction to what he is saying. The role of back-channeling in providing discourse signaling cues is important. The ability of listeners to recall more ideas and include more supporting details is associated with the availability of discourse signaling cues. And this particular system, this open source system, can be used and adapted by researchers and developers.
Hello, my name is Obadiah. How are you feeling today?
Hi Obadiah, I'm good, thanks. But I've just figured out you look like you've got a cold.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Tell me more about
You need
it.
to get some Lemsip in you. Lemsip would be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't really like the taste, but if you put sugar in it.
Yeah.
Sugar is the best, and like it sweetens it up, and then it tastes really good.
It can be so painful, can't it?
Oh no, Lemsip's not painful to take. Mind you, other tablets might be, so I'm not very good at swallowing tablets. I have to take
What about when it all goes wrong?
taking tablets. Well, I don't really like to think taking tablets would go wrong. Although sometimes when I get a migraine, I have to take Sindel, and they're like really strong, so you'll end up like asleep for quite a while, and you're not really supposed to drive when you're on Sindel or anything. So that's probably when it could go wrong. But that's the only time medicine's ever gone wrong for me. I don't really like taking medicine that much. Do you? I don't really. Do you?
I don't suppose it really matters, though.
Oh, well, it might matter if it makes you feel better, if it helps you. Because sometimes if you're not feeling well, you're just floored and you can't do anything, and there's things you need to get up and do.
It's a cruel world.
Oh, no. Tell me about it. But you have to look on the bright side, don't you, Obadiah? Well, you don't think...
Don't you think life wears you down?
Well, yeah, it can be very tiring, but that's why you have to rest and as well as work, and you can't burn the candle at both ends. Sure you can't, because then that's when life wears you down.
It could all go terribly wrong, though. What do you think?
What, life? Well, I suppose life could go terribly wrong, but I'm confident that I wouldn't let my life go terribly wrong, and it's all about the decisions you make. So you could just make good decisions in your life and it won't go wrong. You look quite old, Obadiah. Well, not old, but... So your life's gone alright so far, I'm sure. So you really shouldn't be that miserable and down about it. Sure you shouldn't? Don't think so.
Why bother?
Why bother? Well...
You don't sound very sure.
Oh, I'm just trying to think, and it's hard because I don't know anything about you. So if I knew that you had maybe family or like a wife at home, so why bother? Well, you'd bother for them, or you could bother for your mum, or you could bother because of the good job you're in and the good work that you're doing. But I don't really know the answers because I don't know you very well. I don't know anything about you, really. All I know is that you're depressed and trying to make me depressed too.
Well...
Yeah, I'm glad you.
I can't help thinking about the black side of things.
The black side, I know. But you shouldn't really try and, throw your opinion on other people and try and bring them down with you. Sure you shouldn't.
Here's a system designed at MIT which incorporates sensing technologies to help train learners. Let's watch a short video about this avatar coach.
When people talk to each other, the majority of the information that's conveyed comes from the way we say things rather than the words we're actually saying. Eye contact, smiles, voice modulation, speaking rate, pauses, and emphasis on certain words often add an extra layer of information in our interactions. Many of us want to improve these interaction skills, but don't have the resources to do so. Imagine if you could practice your interaction skills with an automated system in the privacy of your own living room. A program designed at the MIT Media Lab lets you do just that.
Hi, I am Mary. I'm looking forward to doing your interview.
My automated conversation coach consists of a 3D character on a computer screen that can see, hear, and make its own decisions based on its interaction with a person, and it works on a personal computer.
Now, let's get started.
Using a webcam, the system can analyze facial expressions. For example, it can measure where in the interaction you are smiling and can recognize your head gestures such as a nod or a shake. The system also analyzes your voice. It not only understands what you say, but how you say it. Using real-time speech recognition and prosody analysis, it can capture the nonverbal nuances of conversations and display it in an intuitive format. When you're done, it gives you a summary of the information, when you smiled, how fast you spoke, and so on, and it can show how these measures change over multiple sessions. It even allows you to watch the video of your interactions with various measures of your behavior displayed alongside the video, such as when you smile, how the volume of your voice rises and falls, and what words you emphasize. It even shows when your attention wanders.
I can't find you. Oh, there you are. You were saying...
In a study with 90 MIT undergraduates, the subjects went through simulated job interviews before and after receiving this training. Those who got the feedback from this automated system were rated as better candidates for the job than those who did not. Besides job interviews, the researchers say this system could help with public speaking, dating, learning languages, or helping people who have difficulties in social communications.
Integrating affect and emotion into interactions is becoming increasingly common now. Here, you see the Xbox 360 Kinect. Many companies are now beginning to integrate the detection of a user's emotions, understanding that emotion and back-channeling regulate and inform interactions. Here you see again the Xbox 360 Kinect with its affect detection software. This is HTC's smartphone, which can analyze facial expressions, and it's out now and exists now. Nikon is experimenting with a context-sensitive camera to help people better capture the spirit of the photograph they want. Can't wait to see this. It's still in beta. And Intel's perceptual computing capabilities is now available and built into many of the new entry-level laptops. It enables these sorts of interactions that you'll see in the following video.
Space, I can rotate the cube just by rotating my hand. And you see there, it's very easy. And another thing I could do is, there's also voice that's actually integrated into the SDK as well. So I could say things like jump, jump, or pick up, drop.
And you can purchase the compatible camera. You can see it on top of the monitor there for about $200. Creating more satisfying interactions in language learning software is not simply a question of waiting for better speech recognition technology. Linguistic interactions are interwoven in attentional and affective states, which technologies can now sense. Therefore, let's think about developing language learning software that better simulates more natural linguistic interactions and can more appropriately adapt in real time to our learners' affective and cognitive states.